You saw the title, you saw the thumbnail. Apple is indeed working on an all-new MacBook, and this is actually kind of interesting. Now, for most that do not know, Apple had basically mostly two types of MacBooks. You had the MacBook Air, which is obviously the more affordable option to go for, and also is obviously the more lighter and more smaller version. And then you obviously have the likes of the MacBook Pro. And of course, with both of these devices, you have different versions. You have the smaller size with 13 or 14-inch option, then you have the 15 or 16-inch options, which obviously bigger the screens is better, but of course some people do prefer small screens. But there was one thing that a lot of Apple consumers were wanting to have, and that is the likes of a MacBook SE. And it looks like we might be getting this very soon, in fact as soon as next year. Now, for most that don't know, it has been speculated for a long time and has basically been recently confirmed that yes, Apple is indeed working on a new MacBook, and this actually looks very interesting. Now, the chip that will be found with this MacBook is not going to be the likes of the M chip at all. Now, of course, we do have the likes of the MacBook Air, which we already have that has the M chip. So it actually does make sense why Apple's not going to be using these M chips with the new MacBook. But what will be actually found with the MacBooks then? Well, it looks like it's going to be using the likes of the A18 Pro chip that is currently found in the iPhone 16 Pro. Now, before anyone says anything in the comments, this chip is actually more than powerful enough to actually be used as a computer chip. In fact, most of Apple's iPhone chips are actually pretty powerful, and it's not really optimized for obviously more workloads, because of course phones aren't really going to be that heavily used when it comes to obviously doing stuff like video editing or anything like that. So it's actually one way for Apple to actually just show how powerful their iPhone chips are in a MacBook format. Now, not just that, but it will also have a 13-inch display option, which is going to be apparently the only option, which does make sense as an option for Apple's upcoming MacBook. Now, this MacBook is going to also be following the same line as the likes of the iMac, which is going to have some colorful options with the likes of silver, blue, pink, and yellow. Now, this is actually kind of a nice thing in some ways, because this MacBook will mostly be targeted to the likes of students, and of course just some users that just want a simple laptop device that can be used for streaming, using for basic work documents, and of course just doing some basic operations instead of obviously doing some heavy editing and obviously doing more heavy workloads, which actually does make sense as a MacBook, because not everyone wants to pay the MacBook Air price and basically have all this performance that is going to waste because they don't use the MacBook at its full capacity. So this upcoming MacBook SE, which we will just nickname it for right now, does actually make sense as a device and would most likely be a good option to go for, especially if the price is right, which actually by the time of recording is actually expected to be priced at under $500, which means it will be more affordable than the likes of the MacBook Mini M4. But I mean, so far this is still early on into this phase, and we could probably get some news later in this year or even get an announcement sometime soon about this type of MacBook. But let me know in the comments below, would you go for the likes of a MacBook SE if it promised you to have some decent performance for basic projects and also has a decent price tag? But I hope you guys enjoyed. See you guys next one. Be safe as always. Have a great day. Bye.